Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and we've got a special treat in today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be shoutcasting a 10-0 run in the Willpower Cup up to 3,400 ELO, featuring the one and only Mr. Tho Tactical. Now, Tho Tactical is still making content. He is just over on Twitch, streaming basically every day, so if you haven't, make sure to check him out at twitch.tv/ThoTactical and drop him a follow. Now, the team he's been running is Claydol, Mandibuzz, and Guzzlord, and as you can see, going 10-0 to 3,400, this team is pretty cracked. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and he's off to a great start in the first match, leading Claydol into Hisui and Qwilfish. Look at the mud slaps go, as Claydol is absolutely melting through the Qwilfish. Qwilfish returns fire with the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail, very comfortable survive for the Claydol. Claydol gonna look to pick up a knockout with the Scorching Sands, and the Scorching Sands does get no-shielded. In comes Mandibuzz. We're gonna see an aggressive pivot into his own Mandibuzz, and he's gonna be answered with more Peko. Choosing to let this go, this is gonna be Electric Aura Wheel. It's gonna hit for massive damage. Mandibuzz barely hanging on, as it will look to return fire with Dark Pulse. This Morpeko is now going to have Dark-type Aura Wheel, which means that it can actually threaten the Claydol. In comes Claydol. Claydol forced to shield as an Aura Wheel would be massive overkill here. We're going to see a Psychic Fangs bait from the opponent, and they get to another move. No shield from the Claydol, as this is only going to be a Psychic Fangs. Back with the form change goes Morpeko, and we see an aggressive switch out and a snipe with the Guzzlord. Guzzlord now up on energy. Guzzlord does win the 2 shield versus Air/Mandibuzz, but Guzzlord unfortunately only has 1 shield to work with, so this game may come down to a catch. Neither Pokemon doing a lot of damage to each other here, as Guzzlord is going to fire off Dragon Claws, and the Mandibuzz is going to return fire with the Aerial Ace. So this will be a battle where the switch timer is definitely going to come up. So for Tho, it's looking like he's going to need a catch if he wants to secure this victory. He does have energy on the Claydol. Claydol is not far off of an Ice Beam, and especially if this grabs the shield, then obviously an Ice Beam could be a potential win con. Farming up a bunch of energy with the Guzzlord. There's the catch onto the Claydol, and that should just about seal it. Aerial Ace undercharged. Mandibuzz looking for a farm down, but there's the Ice Beam reached by the Claydol. Claydol's worst nightmare is Mandibuzz, but today it gets to flip the script, KO the Mandibuzz, and take the win. Speaking of Mandibuzz, Claydol cannot escape the bird. Claydol is going to save switch into Mandibuzz. Opponent switches out of the mirror, which is honestly pretty surprising to me. And they're going to send in Hisui and Qwilfish. Hisui and Qwilfish does have access to Ice Beam. Opponent is running it, and that will connect for some serious damage onto the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz going for the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace is going to be no-shielded by the opponent. Mandibuzz just going for the Aerial Ace right away, throwing on alignment. The opponent was looking to do 4 and the move, and in this instance, Tho is actually able to force a shield. Quite a bit of energy on this Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz can survive an Aqua Tail here. Aqua Tail will get the Mandibuzz low. Opponent throwing on alignment there. And now, can Mandibuzz potentially go for an Air/Down? This will be close. Oh, it cannot. The spammy Qwilfish getting to another move. Tho is double shielding. He's making the play for switch, but it's a simultaneous KO. And this now comes down to a guessing game. Do you think they're going to bring in the lead or the third Mon? He guesses the third Mon, and he gets it right, as now it's Claydol into Drapion, and this is a great spot to be as the Claydol. Claydol can very comfortably tank that crunch. Opponent is going to switch into the Mandibuzz. Tho looking to connect with an Ice Beam. An Ice Beam landing would be massive. Opponent lets it go, and that's really valuable damage. And now Guzzlord is in such a good position. About half that Mandibuzz's health is gone, and that turns this matchup from a little bit of a tricky one to honestly a very dominating one for the Guzzlord. Guzzlord is going to be hit with another Aerial Ace, but it's just not going to matter. Guzzlord firing off this Dragon Claw. The Mandibuzz is in a range where Dragon Claw would be lethal. Mandibuzz commits the shield. There's a switch out and a catch onto the Shadow Drapion, but this Dragon Claw is going to do massive, massive damage. Guzzlord gets a farm down, and this Guzzlord is just taking over in the endgame. The Claydol had the worst possible lead it could see, but this is a strong backline, able to fight back and secure victory. Hopping into the next match, Claydol into Wobbuffet. Good lead for Claydol. Wobbuffet does not get same type attack bonus on Charm. So overall, Wobbuffet not going to have a great time in this matchup. And considering there's 2 dark types in the back, you are thrilled to see the Charmer on the lead. Getting an attack drop from Scorching Sands forces the opponent out into Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz will be answered with the Guzzlord. Guzzlord, again, is able to win the 2 shield here, but that does mean that Mandibuzz, if it wants to, can potentially force a shield advantage. Although, to be fair, Guzzlord will get to exit with energy if it's down a shield, and landing a Brutal Swing onto the Wobbuffet would still do some pretty nice damage. Another Dragon Claw fired at the Mandibuzz, and it definitely feels like this meta is dictated by how well you're able to utilize the bulky Mandibuzz. Because Mandibuzz is just insanely strong on the safe switch, as it doesn't really have much of anything that hard counters it outside of Morpeko. Opponent brings in the Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet needs 2 charms to KO. Back in comes Claydol. Claydol looking to farm up. Wobbuffet can potentially go for a return here. They are going to full send the return, and that just does nothing. I do have a fully powered up Wobbuffet. I don't think I would use it for this cup. Wobbuffet just has no damage output whatsoever. In the back, it's going to be their own Claydol. In comes the Mandibuzz. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Claydol into another Mandibuzz. Oh my goodness. This poor Claydol is getting absolutely bullied with these leads. Opponent, I'm very, very surprised. They could have thrown the Aerial Ace right away, and that way, then they could have denied Tho a full sneak, and they would have always been 1 air slash ahead. But instead, they overfarmed for no reason, and in doing so, now, I mean, this is even energy. So this will more or less come down to who wins charge attack priority. Opponent does have the shiny Mandibuzz, which is always a pretty nice flex, building up to the back-to-back Aerial Aces and firing off that energy. Aerial Ace is, of course, going to be no shielded. You don't typically want to shield in the Mandibuzz mirror, as you're basically just using your Mandibuzz to waste their energy. Tho is going to build up to the back-to-back Aerial Aces, and as I mentioned earlier, this is now going to come down to who wins the CMP tie here. And it's going to be the opponent. The opponent is able to dictate alignment in this game. So Aerial Ace is going to pick up the KO, sending in the Claydol. Opponent going to send out Greninja, and Greninja's going to get absolutely walled. Did you see? He didn't switch right away, though. He banked a bunch of energy on the Claydol before switching. Greninja's energy is absolutely useless against the Guzzlord, and Guzzlord just gets the farm down. Oh, we actually see a shield from the Guzzlord here. Very interesting. He's got to be reading that it's some kind of problematic Pokemon for the Claydol in the back. Opponent waiting out the timer, and it's a Sableye, so that ends up being a pretty nice read, preserving the Guzzlord. Guzzlord has so much energy, and this opponent's about to have a truly tragic day. Brutal Swing after Brutal Swing launched by the Guzzlord. Guzzlord continues the farm. There's an attempted catch onto the Mandibuzz. It's not going to happen. Sableye can fire off its energy, but nothing is stopping this Guzzlord. It is just absolutely inevitable. At the back-to-back Brutal Swings, at this point, the opponent, if they're counting, they can just let this go. And they are, so they are going to let it go. And that's another win. Hopping into the next match, Claydol finally does not lead into a Mandibuzz, now leading into Annihilape. And, I mean, this is okay. I mean, Rage Fist is still going to do quite a bit of damage, but you would definitely rather see the Annihilape here than stuck against the Guzzlord, where it's just ramping up its counters. So, honestly, not terrible to see it here, because you can tank a Rage Fist. I mean, the counters are adding up now that they're boosted, and they're about to be double boosted. But somehow Claydol is holding its own pretty well here. Claydol now going to have to deal with double boost from the opponent. This Scorching Sands is probably going to be shielded by the opponent. Now we're going to see a switch out into the Mandibuzz, getting the attack drop as well. They do make a close combat, though. This will do quite a bit of damage as it is singularly boosted, and down goes Annihilape. Opponent now going to bring in the Shadow Drapion. Looks like the opponent lagged by a turn on bring-in, as the opponent should have outpaced there by a turn, and instead, I think, yeah, that was a CMP tie. So the opponent should have outpaced there, so that's just unfortunately them lagging by a turn on switch-in. Doesn't impact things a ton throughout the course of the match, at least so far, which is good, but it's never something you want to see. So Mandibuzz firing off another Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace not going to be enough to knock out here, though. Could potentially try for a Snipe. Snipes down with the Guzzlord. In the back is Galarian Moltres, and this game should be over. Guzzlord firing off the Dragon Claw. This is going to do very nice damage. The issue for the opponent is that they're going to have to debuff their defense by 3 stages to actually get a knockout here. So they have to go for the Brave Bird. Brave Bird, I mean, it KOs, but now their defense is absolutely nothing. They actually get the damage registration error there, so they get the last second move, but I believe they're low enough that Claydol can actually mud slap down a Galarian Moltres. And man, Claydol is knocking out all kinds of flying types today. Claydol into Guzzlord. So an opposing Guzzlord. Very interested to see how he decides to play this out. Oh, he's going to go for a Savage Catch onto the Mandibuzz, catching the Crunch. Crunch does actually get a defense drop. So a very nice catch from Tho, but unfortunately that defense drop now means that these Shadow Aqua Tails from the Drapion that switch in are going to do way more damage than they typically would. Another Air Slash, followed by another Aerial Ace here. Aerial Ace is going to connect, dealing some pretty solid damage. Opponent can go for 4 in the move. Mandibuzz, even despite the defense drop, is still outside of Aqua Tail range, which is nice, though is going to go for an under tap to potentially force a shield from the opponent. So Aerial Ace, no shield to the opponent, chooses to let that through. They're going to bring in Qwilfish. Qwilfish is going to get a pretty big farm. In comes Claydol. Opponent is going to switch and make a catch onto the Guzzlord here. Firing off the Scorching Sands. Guzzlord is going to no shield. Farming up a bunch of energy with the Claydol. Claydol is just going to let this go. Claydol's trusting in the 2-shield Guzzlord, but this could now come down to a game of baits, as Qwilfish we know does have access to Ice Beam, so this will be a guessing game. Is it a bait? Is it a nuke? Tho says it's a nuke, and he gets it right. An Ice Beam fired from the Qwilfish. Guzzlord continues the attempted farm down. Another move. Tho's calling it, and it's the Aqua Tail. Every shielding decision correct. The opponent gets farmed down, and they don't get to use a single shield in that game. We've got a mirror lead now, Claydol versus Claydol, so this could get a little bit interesting, as Claydol in the back could potentially have Fairy type, since the Claydol Fairy Core is a very strong one. Though looking to protect his Claydol, opponent is going to go for the Scorching Sands, fishing for a potential attack drop. He's going to go for the harder hitting and super effective damage of Ice Beam, and Ice Beam is able to connect. There's a Mandibuzz save switch. It's a Snarl Mandibuzz. These battles were done on the first day of the Cup, so it's definitely possible that the opponent may have forgotten to TM their Mandibuzz, because there is no reason Mandibuzz should ever be on Snarl in this meta. Air Slash is just a far better move to go for. And since they're on Snarl, I mean, they just get absolutely shredded by Guzzlord. Normally that matchup, it's at least pretty close regardless, but if you're on Snarl, I mean, you get these Aerial Aces a lot faster, but you can never farm down the Guzzlord. The Aerial Ace is going to land. Guzzlord in no danger whatsoever. Opponent brings in the Claydol. Tho's going to bring in his own and get a full farm down. The perfect mud slap down. Exiting with energy stored everywhere. In comes the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz now going to be hit with the Ice Beam. They have to respect this, or this will KO. They're forced to shield a move from the Claydol. So Claydol putting in quite a bit of work so far. Opponent goes for the Dark Pulse, and down goes Claydol. You have so much energy on the Guzzlords, you just go Mandibuzz. And honestly, you can just farm all the way down. In comes Rapidash, and this should just be a win, as Rapidash, due to its typing, takes neutral damage from dark moves. So you go for the Dark Pulse to get the shield, and then you have the back-to-back Brutal Swings. Brutal Swing number 1 is going to connect. Going for Brutal Swing number 2. Rapidash in shambles. Fairy type gets absolutely cooked by a Guzzlord. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Amazing lead in the next match. Claydol into Victini. Opponent get a save switch into Mandibuzz. This Mandibuzz is on the right moveset of Air Slash. And as always, Mandibuzz answered with the Guzzlord. This is a very, very restricted meta. So you're not going to be seeing a lot of variety in terms of the picks that are used. But what that does also mean is you can learn the matchups very well. And as a result, you can master the meta and climb quite a bit of ELO. They're going to go for the Aerial Ace. The nice thing about these long mid-game matches is it really gives you a moment to analyze the game as it's happened so far and make plans for the future. Like in this game, for example, Tho really doesn't care about switch, because Victini into the Claydol or into the Mandibuzz, neither one is going to do great work for the opponent. So now, after the opponent makes the play for switch, he can just bring in his own Mandibuzz, fully waste their energy. They only get an Aerial Ace. They bring in the Victini, but Victini is not going to have a good day going against the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz gets to fire off a Dark Pulse. They can survive this. Not super well, though. Opponent is going to switch out into Moltres, and this is just a completely one game at this point. Moltre is going to have a pretty terrible time against the Mandibuzz, as Mandibuzz with the shield advantage is in a very good spot. I see what the opponent was going for there. They were expecting that Tho would potentially go for like a Mud Slap Snipe since the Victini was so low, but Tho was more than happy just to stay in here and not switch lock himself in case it was something bad. And now, I mean, yeah, this is just completely over. Mandibuzz is going to shield up the Ancient Power. Mandibuzz can look for that full farm down. And Victini, I mean, they're getting KO'd by a Mud Slap, so they are going to resign the match. And here he is claiming his second 5-0 and climbing up to 3407 ELO. What a massive, massive climb. Big thank you to Tho for sending in the battles. Now, as I mentioned at the start, he streams most days at twitch.tv/ThoTactical, so definitely give him a follow. I imagine most people watching the video already do follow him, as the Pokemon Go PvP community is quite close-knit, but if you haven't, definitely go check him out, as he does stream kind of in the middle of the day for us Americans, and it can be a very nice thing to watch on your lunch break. And overall, this team, I think, is a great team. If you're looking to climb, I mean, Tho showed by going 10-0, good leads, bad leads, mirror matches, didn't matter. He was able to win them all. Granted, he's a very good battler, but it just goes to show that this is a team that does offer quite a bit of flexibility. So even if you do run into a bad stretch where you're leading into a bunch of Mandibuzz, those games are still winnable. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.